Hello guys, my name is BJ Min, the publisher of HowExpert.com, where we publish short how-to guides on unique topics by everyday experts. And today we have a special interview with one of our authors. His name is Michael Cole. He is the author of the book, How to Run for Local Office, 10 Steps to Run a Successful Campaign for Local Office. And he has real life experience helping other people go out there, run for local office, and win local offices. He also has personal experience running for local office. So this is going to be a very interesting interview because I'm sure some people out there all around the world who may watch this video may be interested in running for local office because they have a mission. They want to impact their local city, state, wherever they live in a positive way. Before we get started with the interview, I want to read a short bio about Michael Cole. Michael Cole has been actively engaged in the local political arena, both in the foreground and behind the scenes in Southeast Texas for over 20 years. Familiar with all level of running for government, from local elections to state and federal elections, Mr. Cole has been a candidate for office 4 times and helped over 100 local candidates run for and win their elections. Born to a military family at Fort Lewis Army Base, politics has been a passion of Mr. Cole since an early age. Mr. Cole ran for office in 1994 and has been at it since. Holding various local positions, he brings his expertise and passion to every campaign he signs to. And I also want to show you his book here. It's How to Run for Local Office, right here on Amazon.com, that you can get. He goes into real in-depth inside the book, from step 1, opening moves, step 2, the decision to run, step 3, first steps, the message, the media, events, campaign materials, the struggle, campaign plan, end of the run. He goes into very in-depth steps on how anybody who has a passion to make a change in their local city or wherever they live can run for local office. So Michael, I appreciate you for coming. Thanks for coming to this interview. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great today. It's always happy to talk about something that I'm passionate about. And so, and the nice thing about it is it's been 9 months since my last interview, so I was about due.
Awesome. So let's go into let's get started with the interview. Like, most people may want to go into, let's start with the background. How did you develop a passion for politics? How did you get it developed?
Ever since an early age, history has been something that I've been extremely passionate about. And for most people, especially when you're a young guy, you get involved in, you like histories about wars and conflict. And if you're someone who's like me, that likes to ask that, why did this happen? It's a natural step to go, okay, well, they happen because of political disagreements, because of a political ambition of one nation or another nation. From there, it's not too big of a leap to start getting interested in the politics behind conflict and international events. And from there, you start going, oh, wait, I can actually be part of this. I can make changes. And then by the time I got into high school, this was the early 90s when I made it to high school, and suddenly I was like, hey, this is something I really love doing. While most of my friends could tell you sports stats, I could tell you all of the voting stats of my congressman.
Wow, since the early age and even in high school, that's very unique. Absolutely. Okay, so like, how did you decide? So you had a passion early on. That's very interesting. So there might be some young people out there in high school right now. They're watching this video interview and they're like, you know what? I'm kind of like Michael. Like, that's a clue to go into it, right? That's a clue.
Yeah. I was still a senior in high school when I ran for school board. The school board elections were in the beginning of May and graduation was at the end of May. So while I was running for a school board job, I was still in high school. I learned a lot of stuff in that election. Like, for instance, I learned that political posters should not be made in magic marker on poster board if you expect them to survive any rains. And I found out that a $26 budget is not enough to win anything.
That's a good point right there. But at least you took that first step at an early age, and I'm sure you learned a lot of the lessons. So let's talk about, like, how did you decide if you have what it takes to run? That's the one question I would like to know, because maybe people think, oh, I have to get at this level to run. But how do you know? How do you decide?
I honestly think that anybody who wants to truly be successful, you get a lot of people in it who want to advance to higher offices, who want the prestige that being elected to office is. And there's some people that are successful at that. But me, I think to survive the day in, day out demands of being an elected official or a candidate is you have to have a passion for changing things. It's not just enough to say, oh, one day I can be president. But if you're running for school board, have a passion for actually improving the education in the district. If you have a passion for your city and you want to improve your city, have a passion before you run for city council. It's not enough to say, oh, being mayor will be cool. You have to be able to take the hard parts along with the good parts, and otherwise you're going to burn out. You're going to end up hating every day of your life, because there's a lot of demands in which average people or anybody is going to sit there and go, this is not what I signed up for.
Right. So you need to, it sounds like you, before you just jump into local office, don't just do it for the status or to look good or feel good, but you need to have the passion first. You need to believe in something first before you go into it. Absolutely.
Right.
Once a person has that passion, that mission, they want to make a change, they want to run for local office, what is the first thing that you recommend they need to do, practically speaking? Because someone may want to do it, but they don't know what to do. What do they need to do?
What I would honestly suggest is find out everything you can about the position you're running for. Don't run for city council thinking that you're going to be able to change stuff that is not in office. So many times when I was running for office, I would have people come to me and say, like, for instance, when I was running for Congress, they would ask me questions that a state representative would be the one that would answer that, or a local county commissioner or a governor. And, you know, the average voter isn't really versed on what each office does. But if you're running for a particular office and somebody comes to you and says, can you fix that? And you say, sure, I can do it. And you find out later on that you have absolutely nothing to do with that particular service, you look like you just lied to a voter. So my first suggestion would be find out about what you're running for. If you're getting involved in city council because you don't like how the drainage district is fixed, and you find out that it's a different office you have to run for, consider running for that office instead, but don't get into it blindly. Find out as much as you can about the office.
Oh, that's a really good answer right there. Okay, so you got to know everything before you get into it. And I have a question. What are some examples of positions in most cities, most states in the United States that people can go into and run for? What are some positions, some real life examples?
Let's see, like, for instance, if you're going to run, since my background is Texas politics, I'll use some of their positions.
Okay.
If you want to have something to do with education, you want to run for your local school boards. Usually there are 7 seats in every local school board, and if that's a good spot. In county government, there's usually a county commissioner's court, which the county is run by a position called a county judge, and they're aided by 4 or 5 county commissioners. If you want something to do with the county government, that's something you should probably look into. Of course, city council, depending on the kind of city that you're, whether it's like a big city like Houston or a small city like Orange, most city council positions, you can have 4 or 5. I want to say that Houston has about 15 or 20. Then, of course, you got state legislature. There are 155 state legislature seats in the state of Texas, and each one's districted off depending over particular areas, and there's 31 Texas Senate seats. Now, in Texas, if you ever get to the level where you want to run for state government, there's the governor and there's 4 other executive positions. A lot of people think Texas is a lot like other states. Like, for instance, in California, the governor of California or the governor of New York has an immense amount of power. In Texas, the Texas governor, the only real power he has is he signs legislation. The lieutenant governor is actually, if you want to run Texas government, you want to be the lieutenant governor because you control the legislative session. If you want to be involved in the railroad or the natural gas process of Texas politics, you want to run for, believe it or not, if you want something to do with oil in Texas, you want to run for the Railroad Commission.
Okay.
Ask me why, that's just how it evolved. But after that, of course, you have the House of Representatives, it's elected every 2 years, and the Senate, in which you were elected for a 6-year term. And if by some miracle you make it all the way up to the top office, you know, and you want to spend most of your life trying to get where Hillary or Trump got, there's the office of the president. Though I would honestly suggest some real soul searching and mental health evaluation before you ran for that office.
Right. Okay. Just curious. It seems like there's definitely a lot of positions that you can go into. Maybe someone who wants to get their feet wet, but they definitely see themselves going into politics. What is the most common position? Is this city council, or what position is it for most places?
I would say if you are a party-oriented person and you want to get your feet wet with either the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, yes, both parties have what's called a precinct chair. It is actually an elected position. Are divided into so many precincts for each party. When you go to your precinct voting box, both parties have divided their county parties into smaller precinct divisions. Now, you can get into where you can meet people that have that. If you're a Democrat or Republican, you run for, or you can actually be appointed to a precinct chair position. It's probably the lowest rung party elected position, but you get to meet the people who are your neighbors. If your precinct encompasses a neighborhood, you can meet 400 or 500 people just who live in your basic neighborhood. It gets you a chance to kind of who later on would vote for you, to give you that little first step. I would honestly suggest a party position first, because once you build that community connection, you can then go for a city council position. You could then go for a school board position. But I would say if you're young, 18, 19, 20, or maybe even a little bit older, start here first, because that's where you can cut your teeth, you can get your feet wet until you decide to make that step to a much larger arena.
Okay, very good advice for people who just want to get their feet wet and get into politics for beginners. Let me ask you this. You've also had experience helping other people run and win, correct?
Yes.
And from your experiences looking back, what are the components, the core lessons that you've learned that help them win, that you can share with other people who also want to win in the future?
Let's see. First of all, I would go back to the passion for the office, because without the passion, the rest of it doesn't work. I would also say that an ability for public speaking and not being afraid to is a good thing. Now, that's something that you can actually work on. That's something you can develop. You can get over your butterflies. You can go to Toastmasters. You can work with people to learn to hone your public speaking skills. The sad fact of the matter is the way American politics is working is the next thing is not being afraid to ask people for donations, because if you're somebody who has a lot of pride, you might have to swallow quite a bit of that, because you're going to have to go to people and say, I need $200 for my campaign. I need $500 for my campaign. If you can't get over that part of calling people or talking to people and say, hey, I need money to win, then you can run. But unfortunately, like I said, with the way money is in politics these days, you're not going to get very far.
That's a very important point as well. Passion, but at the same time, you do need the funds, and you need to be able to ask people. And let me ask you this. You have experience helping people win. Generally speaking, who do you ask to get the donations? Who will give you the big portions of the donation? Who do you ask, generally speaking?
Let's see. Depending on the office you're seeking in, it just, like, for instance, if I was running for a city council position, the first people I would ask would be, of course, people close to me. If I knew business people, if I knew community leaders, I would say, I'm running. I need, and you can't be bashful about it. If you think a person can give you a $500 donation, say, hey, I need $500 for this campaign. They may not specifically have it, but if they're a community leader and they like you, they know people that do. There's business leaders, there's lawyers. Really, it's just, you want to hone it on based on, you start off with your close friends and family. Those will be the first people you ask. From there, you kind of rank out. It's almost kind of like your ring, kind of like different rings of people you know. You get to your close people, and that will get you your first money. Then you ask them to kind of like spread out. And ask other people. And you might actually get to the point where you start holding fundraisers. If you get your name out there, you'll get some people who might actually say, hey, you know, we want to give you donations because I think you might actually win. It's just, when I ran,
Yes.
I would almost just go through the phone book for like the Chamber of Commerce and go, hey, look, I'm running. I want to help you as a business person. Can we sit there and talk for 5 or 6 minutes when you're free to see about a donation? The worst they'll do is say no. If nothing else, your name's out there now.
Yes, I like that idea, actually, going straight to the business owners in Chamber of Commerce. That's very good in the local city. That's a good idea. Fascinating. Okay, so let's talk about that experience of you actually running. You ran 4 times, and how many people did you run against in the one of the latest races that you actually ran against?
Let's see, the last one, the 2016 congressional election, I didn't have a primary opponent, and in the general election, it was just me and the Republican. The Republican was the incumbent for the 14th Congressional District of Texas, and unfortunately in 2016, it got down to, I mean, honestly, it didn't matter how good I was doing in the race. The sad thing is for federal politics, you've got to accept that sometimes the people up ballot from you determine the course of the election. For Texas, it was a good year for Republicans and Trump, so that meant that down ballot Democrats, of course, suffered. I got really close for a Democrat, but you know, sometimes you can do everything right and still lose.
It's still very close. I mean, most people like myself and most people I know who've never ran, there's still lessons to be learned. What can you share? What kind of lessons can you share for other people who also want to run their first time? The things that you did well, you did come close. So what are the lessons that you learned from the successes? Also the challenges, what can you share with other people from the latest races?
Let's see. The first thing I would say is don't let successes go to your head, because today's successes can be tomorrow's failure. If you win an election and you've made promises, you better remember them and you better make an effort to keep them, because the worst voter to have is the voter who feels you lied to them. Wow. Become approachable. I've run into candidates who have been elected to city council seats, to state legislator seats, who assumed the second they won, somehow they were better than all of their constituents or everybody that they were around. And that comes back to haunt you. And that gets back down to the passion. You've got to have a passion for public service, because you're going to be in Walmart, you're going to be in the shopping mall, you're going to be out just trying to, you know, having like a day off. And you're going to be recognized by one of your voters, and they might be upset, and you better be willing to get an earful when you're out at like Dairy Queen or McDonald's. And what I would say is, what I would share is, like, for having lost is, don't take it personally. If you did everything you possibly could and you still lose, then understand that sometimes it just wasn't meant to be, that there were a lot of other circumstances involved. The candidate that you ran against could have had considerably more money and could have gotten their message out. It could be like that it was an election year in which, if you were on a partisan election, your party just did poorly because of things that were beyond your control. And then sometimes you have to admit that the position that you ran on is not exactly what your friends and neighbors want. So you, at the end of the day, you have to sit there and say, the people spoke, and I can either cry in the corner or I can learn from it and I can make changes.
I respect that. I respect that. Absolutely. And yeah, like I say, you mentioned the importance of passion. Even after you do achieve success, you do win. Don't let it get in your head, because you never know down the line, those people, you know, they might come around, and you know, you have to deal with them in the future as well. Absolutely. Absolutely. With social media these days, now that's a new thing, running for politics. Does that make a big difference in the local election? Do you see that?
It's starting to. I mean, I'm starting to see, and in the last election, a lot of the ones that I knew as far as running for local office were starting more and more to put their own Twitter, their own Facebook pages. I mean, you know, if you're running for school board and you get a couple hundred local voters who are following on your social media, you can get your message out a lot more effectively and a lot more less cost prohibitive than actually putting out campaign signs. I would almost these days say that if you have a choice between spending $1,000 on pushing social media, because now on Facebook you can actually direct your ads at a specific zip code, a specific demographic of person, a specific age group. If I had $100 and I was running for school board, I would pick social media over campaign signs. Because think about it, you're driving around, you got for sale signs, going out of business signs, you got your opponent signs. And most people, if you're like me or my wife, who seems to think that, speed limits are just merely suggestions, you don't really see the campaign signs. But think about how much time a person spends on a Twitter feed, their Facebook feed. And, if you can target your ads, you're going to get your money's worth. I would almost suggest that these days, go to mailouts and go to social media first. Because if you have to run a shoestring campaign, every dollar counts.
Yes. That is very important advice for now and for the future. I see, whether it's for politics or even business. The old way of advertising is not working as effectively anymore. Is the future, like Facebook. So like you said, if you do have a shoestring budget, then use it for Facebook, because as a marketer myself, I know Facebook is one of the most effective ways to promote your business or whatever you want to promote out there.
And then I would also add, for a social media, you get feedback. When I ran an ad for my congressional thing, or I run an ad for a school board person, I know how many people saw it. I know the bounce rate. I know the like rate. I know that ad worked, that I reached people. The sign, you're like, okay, how many people drove by and actually saw this sign today?
Right. Just curious, if you do get the donations, majority of that donation, what is it used for? Is it used for advertising? That's what it is?
It just depends. In many cases, advertising is the biggest budget for any campaign. Okay. The signs, T-shirts, social media, mail-outs, that's where like a bulk of it. If you're spending, less than 85% campaign on advertising, you need to spend at least 85% of your campaign on getting the word out. If you're spending less than that, then you're not using your funds appropriately. I mean, the other 15% would be like overhead. Like, for instance, some offices require a lot of paperwork reporting. Like if you run for a federal office, there's quarterly FEC reports in which if you don't file in time and you don't file correctly, you can get into like financial or even legal problems. Same things with states. Local elections, it just depends on whether or not the local municipality has certain rules. So you're going to spend some overhead costs, either hiring a bookkeeper. Of course, you're going to get P.O. box. I would never suggest any candidate use their personal address for mailing. But you're going to, like you said, you're going to spend most of your time that you raise in donations in just getting your name out, because a candidate with great ideas but no name recognition and nobody hearing from isn't going to win.
Right. Now let's, you gave some great tips on this talk right now. Any additional tips and advice that you have for other people that is inside the book, How to Run for Local Office, that you want to share to go out there and achieve their dreams of becoming, running for local office?
I would just all wrap it back up to passion. It's going to be a hard race. No matter when you decide to run, I would say you need to start planning at least a good year in advance. So that before the election. So I would say that is going to be a hard year for you. You're going to lose friends because there are going to be times in which they don't agree with you, and you're going to have political arguments. You can either try and keep it. You're just going to have some that just are going to have anything to do with you anymore. You have to accept that you're going to be in basically a fish tank for at least a year, in which everything you do, everything you say, especially in social media, is going to be thrown right back in your face. So you better grow a thick skin. But above all, when it gets to the point where you wake up that morning and you go, why the hell did I do that? You'll then remember that's because I want to make a difference. You bet, like I said, passion. That's going to be what drives you.
And that's what you've been around the political field for a lot of people. You've seen people in that field. The ones who succeed for the long run are the ones with passion, correct?
Yeah, the ones that wake up every morning wanting it. And passion to me isn't the field of politics. It's marketing, it's business, it's everything you do in life. If you can't find passion for what you're doing, go find something else that you are passionate about, because it's going to get to that day in which your job, your political career, your just what you do in life is going to get you down. And if you don't have passion for what you're doing, you're not going to succeed. You're going to fail. So find that love of it. Find that determination that it's going to get you up at 4 in the morning or 3 in the morning and keep you up past midnight because you're willing to do whatever it takes to get there.
Absolutely. That's an important message. Just out of curiosity, without going into too much detail, what was your passion for that caused you to go out there and run all these years? Like, what was your passion?
Helping people. I mean, to me, I felt that government is and was the best way to help the most people, to create that even playing field. To me, government is a place where people can come together and do great things, where nobody's left behind and everybody has a voice. That's when government's run right. Everybody has a seat at the table. Everybody's concerns and their questions are answered. And then everybody has that even playing field to succeed in life. And that's what drives me to get good people elected or run for office myself.
Absolutely. To make a change for as many people as much as possible. That's the platform to do it. Awesome advice. Again, for those of you guys who watch this, his book, Michael Cole's book, How to Run for Local Office, is available as an ebook, paperback book, and audio book. And also, if you do want to check out his resources, there'll be links below the video, his LinkedIn page, professional page, as well as freelancing resources as well. You can check out the links below the video to check out how to get in contact with Michael Cole. Michael, thanks for being on this interview. I really appreciate your time, and I wish you the best of success in your future.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right, take care, Michael.